Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're setting sail on a journey into a really captivating maritime mystery. It's one that doesn't just span oceans, but seems to, well, bend time itself. Imagine the turn of the 20th century. A big moment, right?
Yeah.
Lots of anticipation. And supposedly, right then, there's a ship doing something. Well, seemingly impossible. The vessel we're talking about is the SS Warrimoo, launched in England, 1892. A passenger and refrigerated cargo liner.
A real workhorse of the era.
Exactly. Solid ship. But she's remembered for something much, much stranger than carrying cargo.
There's this incredible claim. The legend is that right at midnight, December 31st, 1899, heading into 1900,
Yep.
the Warrimoo positioned herself perfectly at the intersection of the Equator and the international date line.
And that's where it gets, well, really mind-bending. If that actually happened, think about it. The ship's bow would be in the southern hemisphere, so summer. And technically, it's already January 1st, 1900 there.
Okay.
But the stern, still in the northern hemisphere, winter. And it's still December 31st, 1899.
Wow. Yeah. So literally, the ship is supposedly in two hemispheres, 2 seasons, 2 different days, 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, even 2 centuries, the 1800s and the 1900s,
Right.
all at the same instant.
That is absolutely wild. I mean, the sheer number of things happening simultaneously, hemispheres, season, day, year, century, that's what grabs you, isn't it?
It really is.
But like you said, that kind of pinpoint accuracy in 1899 sounds
Unlikely.
likely. So our mission today, let's explore this legend. Does it hold up? And why does a story like this stick around? Let's unpack this. Okay, so just to be clear on the core claim, SS Warrimoo, 0 degrees latitude, 180 degrees longitude. Equator meets the date line. Midnight, New Year's Eve, 1899 into 1900. On a voyage from Vancouver to Sydney.
That's the legend in a nutshell.
And it's those layers, being in two hemispheres, summer and winter, Friday and Saturday, or rather, December 31st and January 1st, 1899 and 1900.
All at once.
Yeah, it just feels almost too neat, too perfect. So where does the story first start to wobble? Was there immediate reporting?
That's a really good question, because this is where it gets interesting, comparing the legend to, well, the actual contemporary records. There was reporting. The Sydney Morning Herald actually mentioned the Warrimoo in January 1900, just after this supposed event.
Okay, so close to the time.
Right. They confirmed the ship, Captain J.D. Phillips in command, did cross the equator, which makes sense. Vancouver to Sydney, you have to cross it.
Sure.
But, and this is the key thing, the newspaper specifically says the crossing happened on December 30th, 1899.
The 30th, not the 31st.
Exactly, not the 31st. And no mention of the international date line or midnight or anything like that. So that early report immediately casts, well, let's say, significant doubt on the more elaborate story that came later. And then you have the whole fact versus fiction thing, especially with navigation back then.
Right, the technology.
Precisely. In 1899, sailors used sextants, chronometers, good tools for the time, certainly. Getting within, say, a few nautical miles of your position, that was considered excellent work.
But this claim needs pinpoint accuracy, like down to the foot at a specific second.
Exactly. On a moving ship, at the intersection of two invisible lines in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I mean, the technology just wasn't capable of that kind of precision. Not even close. It'd be like trying to thread a needle on a roller coaster. The margin of error was just way too big. So, can we verify the legend? Honestly, no. It cannot be verified. The lack of navigational precision at the time makes the literal claim, well, let's be blunt, highly improbable. It's a fantastic story, but likely just that, a story.
Okay, so it's unverified, probably impossible from a technical standpoint. So what does that mean for the story itself? How does something like that not just fade away? How does it become this enduring legend?
Well, that's the fascinating part, isn't it? The persistence. Despite the facts, or lack thereof, this story just kept going. It really shows you the power of a good narrative.
A charming ship story, as it's sometimes called.
Exactly. And you can trace its journey through the decades. It was still popping up in print in, like, 1942. The Ottawa Journal mentioned it.
Over 40 years later.
Yeah. So it had already become this piece of popular trivia. Then, in 1953, Ships in the Sea magazine ran an article called A Freak of Navigation. That really cemented it in maritime circles.
Okay, reaching the enthusiasts.
Right. And incredibly, even now, 2024, you still see it online on social media.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird facts that keeps circulating. It's a prime example of how a captivating story, verified or not, can just weave itself into our collective memory.
It really is amazing how that happens. I think maybe it taps into something fundamental, our fascination with grand achievements, things that seem almost impossible.
Yeah, breaking boundaries.
Right. The idea of a ship just perfectly straddling time and space.
Yeah.
It's romantic, it's clever, it feels like a puzzle we want to be true. And maybe back then, without instant global news, these kinds of tales traveled differently, sailor to sailor, port to port.
Becoming almost like myths.
Yeah, exactly. They fill that need for wonder, for something extraordinary happening out there on the vast ocean.
And if you look at the bigger picture, it really underlines how powerful narratives are. Sometimes the story itself, the idea, becomes more important or more memorable than the strict historical accuracy. We see it all the time, not just with ships. These charming stories, even if they're built on shaky foundations, become part of our cultural landscape because they resonate somehow. They capture the imagination.
And speaking of the Warrimoo's actual history, not just the legend, there's a pretty stark contrast, a real-world twist to her story later on.
Oh, absolutely.
This ship wasn't just a myth. She had a long service life. And just a few years after this supposed time-bending feat, she was doing something very different, very serious. She became a troop ship during World War I.
That's right. A far cry from the whimsical legend. She carried troops, important work like the Maori Pioneer Battalion for the New Zealand Expeditionary Force in early 1915, sailing dangerous waters for real this time.
So her actual end wasn't quite as poetic.
No, not at all. Her end was tragic, actually. May 1918, near the end of the war. She was in a convoy, sailing from Bizerte in Tunisia to Marseille, France, carrying troops again.
Dangerous waters, then, with U-boats.
Extremely dangerous. And it wasn't a U-boat that got her, but something else entirely. In the confusion of the convoy, she collided with a French destroyer, the Catapult.
Oh, no.
Yeah, terrible accident. And what happened next was even worse. During the collision, depth charges from the Catapult, those big anti-submarine bombs, got knocked loose. They fell into the water and detonated. The explosion was massive. It sank both the Warrimoo and the Catapult almost immediately.
Both ships gone.
Both gone. One person on the Warrimoo was killed in the incident. So her real ending was sudden, violent, and tragic. A stark reality of war at sea, very different from the charming legend she's known for.
Wow. So that really brings our deep dive full circle, doesn't it? We started with this almost unbelievable, fantastical claim about precision and time. We looked at the historical records, the navigational limits that make it highly improbable. Right.
And then we see how the story itself took flight, became this beloved piece of folklore, even while the real ship met a very different dramatic end. It really shows that line between story and fact.
It really does. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about the power of stories. The Warrimoo tale shows how a narrative can just capture imaginations and stick around for generations, even if the details aren't quite solid.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about our love for incredible tales, maybe more than our need for strict accuracy sometimes. The truth of the story, in a way, becomes its enduring appeal.
Absolutely. So maybe as you're listening, think about that. How many other facts or stories we hear are maybe more like the Warrimoo legend, captivating tales that have grown over time? History's full of them, those fascinating blends of surprising truth and charming fiction. So we encourage you, keep doing your own deep dives. Keep questioning, exploring, and finding the stories behind the stories.